My name is Jody Gaver. I'm a TSP or Technical Solutions Professional for Microsoft for the North Central Territory. Currently, that means everywhere from Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, North, and South Dakota. And my area of expertise is deploying Windows in general. And today we're going to talk about deploying Windows 10. What do I deploy this summer and how? So we've all been struggling with, do I deploy the latest and greatest? Do I deploy what I've been deploying? Do I stay on Windows 7? What are some reasons of why I would actually move forward with the latest update? So why 1803? Well, the Windows 10 April update was designed to help you make the most of your time. You'll be able to share files over Bluetooth, find focus by blocking out distractions, and you'll even be able to go back in time to search for projects on your PC and phone. So it's also packed full of tools that you need to boost creativity and get more done. Some of the features we're going to discuss today are the new features of Timeline, Focus Assist, and Nearby Sharing. We'll also discuss some improved features with Edge, Ink, 3D, Photos, and Accessibility, and some others. So, Timeline. Only Windows lets you go back in time to past activities that you did across your multiple devices, so you can jump back and forth like you never left. Going back and forth in time allows us to easily scroll and find things you were working on earlier today or even a few weeks ago. How many times have you got a help desk call and someone says, "Oh, I can't figure out what I was working on or where I saved it." Now we have something to help with that. You can find activities easily by clicking on the new taskbar icon to see all your activities on a specific day grouped by hour, including all the things you did using Edge and Office 365 on your tablet and mobile phone. And if you don't see what you need, you can easily search Timeline to find it. We can also remove activities whenever you want, deleting activities from a specific day or hour. Focus Assist. I love this. Focus allows you to get more done by easily blocking notifications, sounds, alerts to create a distraction-free work time or times. When you're preparing for a big presentation or you have to get a report done. This allows you to work the way you want. Focus Assist gives you the flexibility to choose what to block and when. Turn on Focus Assist whenever you want to get things done without distractions like notifications, sounds, and alerts, or set Focus Assist to turn on automatically at certain times during the day. You can stay connected when you need to. You can make sure you get the most important people coming through by creating a special priority list of those you also want to reach you. Whether you're working or you need complete concentration, you can block all notifications or just some. Nearby sharing. Instantly share your videos, photos, documents, and websites with people or devices near you over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. We can share them quickly. We can send any photo, video, document, or web page to people nearby by clicking on the share charm in the app or right-clicking to get the share menu. You can share a report with a colleague in your meeting room or a vacation photo with a friend in the library. Or for me, it's sharing photos and videos with my son, or more so, him sharing them back with me because he has the better phone. We can take the quickest path. Your computer automatically picks the fastest way to share your file or web page, either over Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And we can see who's available. Bluetooth allows you to quickly discover potential devices in which you could share nearby to you. Microsoft Edge. We now have clutter-free printing. You can easily enable this by clicking the clutter-free printing option in the print dialog and print web pages with only the content you want. You can also have Edge on your mobile device. You can get Microsoft Edge for iOS or Android, start reading a web page on your phone or tablet and send it to your PC, where you can easily pick up reading where you left off. Other great new features: mute a tab, autofill, full screen reading, and more EPUB book options. The mute a tab is wonderful. How often have you had that tab just automatically start playing something, an ad or a YouTube video or something, and you can't figure out what's going on? Now it'll actually show a little icon on it so you can mute that tab. Windows Ink acceleration. This is designed for a 30 to 50% improvement in latency. This is by far the fastest Windows Ink yet. You can easily tap to ink. Using your digital pen in any text field, just tap a space like a search box to expand the writing area. Edit what you've written with simple, intuitive gestures. 3D in Windows 10. We have animations in the mixed reality viewer where you can record a video with animated 3D models, or just click Remix 3D to find animated models that already are in there, or bring static 3D models to life with one-click animations. Isn't this like super cool? You can give more power to your point. Add animation to static 3D models in your PowerPoint presentations like this, where you can just click on the animation to choose a movement for your 3D model. Microsoft Photos, choose a star. You can simply click a button, select someone, and Photos will automatically create a video about them using photos and videos from your collection. Accessibility features have been greatly improved. Make your device fit your needs. I'm sure a lot of us are paying extra for a lot of accessibility software in our environment. So much of this is built into Windows 10 and Office 365 now. You can control most accessibility features right from one place, your ease of access settings, where they're grouped under visual, hearing, and interaction. You can get text suggestions as you type, get help constructing sentences using the keyboard, touch, or hardware. As you type, you'll see 3 suggested words that you could use. Make easier reading, or I should say, make reading easier. Grammar tools break words into syllables and highlight parts of speech such as nouns, verbs, and as you read websites using the reading view and EPUB books. Alright, so we talked about some of the new features. Lots of cool new features. So this is just one of the reasons why you would deploy 1803 instead of 1709 or previous versions. Also, by deploying 1803, you're not as far behind. Currently, we have about an 18-month servicing window, and I say about because, as we all know, things change a little bit, but you don't want to get far behind in security updates and features. And it's most likely, if you deploy 1803 now, if there are any issues at all, they will most likely be resolved by an update before school starts. And also, each one of these upgrades, as we do them, is less and less disruptive. It's happening more and more in the background, so literally we should be down to several minutes worth of upgrades in the background as people are working, and then it'll prompt them for a restart at the end. Alright, so what if I'm still on Windows 7? Well, there's a couple different things you can do. You can upgrade to Windows 10. This is a super quick and easy way to get people upgraded on the same platform, which makes it much easier for you to manage your Windows updates. It also, by doing the upgrade, allows you to have that rollback period. So if you upgraded somebody's device and they ran into issues with the OS, which is not very often anymore, but you would have that ability to easily roll back. Now you can do this upgrade a couple ways. You can do it manually, or you can use an SCCM task sequence to handle the upgrade options, which I highly prefer because usually when you're upgrading from like Windows 7 to Windows 10, you're probably upgrading Office and some other things. You can re-image, so if you're a little bit on the old school side or you just want to play it safe, you can re-image the machine and start out with a clean, fresh start. This is also a valid reason if you're going from BIOS to UEFI or 32-bit to 64-bit. Another option is you can just stay on Windows 7 until 2020. For whatever reasons in your environment, maybe you're too busy, maybe you don't have licensing, you can't afford to do the upgrade, and you're going to stay on 7 for a little while yet. Alright, so we talked about the different iterations of Windows 10, the feature upgrades, but what about the different editions of Windows? I get this question a lot. Do I go with Home or Pro or Education or Enterprise? So starting in version 1607, we introduced 2 different editions designed for the unique needs of K-12 institutions. We have Windows 10 Pro Education and Windows 10 Education. So how do I choose? Windows 10 Pro Education builds on the commercial version of Pro and provides important management controls needed in schools. Back in 1607, Cortana was removed, which you asked for at the time, but then we found due to accessibility needs that we really needed Cortana there. So 1703 and newer, Cortana is on by default. You can control this with group policies and registry keys if you need to. So Windows 10 Education builds on the enterprise version of Windows 10 and provides the enterprise-grade manageability and security that are desired by a lot of our larger schools. This is by far the most complete and secure edition for education environments. So, we talked about the couple different versions of Windows 10, Education and Education Pro. I highly recommend you look in your volume licensing and see what you're entitled to. And if you're entitled to the more enterprise versions of education, I would definitely go that route if you can. So, managing Windows 10 and Microsoft Store tips, tricks, and suggestions. Some best practices. Don't customize a base image anymore. We have been spending a lot of time making it easier and easier for you to manage after the fact. You don't need to do all this tweaking in the base image anymore. We use group policy or Intune for education settings to manage the devices. If you're imaging, you can do a lot of things in that process with PowerShell scripts and other scripts to either remove applications or maybe add in .NET. There's a lot of things you can do in there, but try not to do that in your base image. And we use provisioning packages now. So we'll talk a little bit more about this at a later time, but provisioning packages allow you to have a very easy way to change what's already there instead of re-imaging. How to keep apps removed from Windows 10 when you're doing an update. We've had this happen quite a bit in the past where you all customized your image, you stripped out apps in the process, then you do the upgrade and they come back. So when you're upgrading from 1703 to 1709 or 1511 to 1709, you might see provisioned apps that you previously removed return post-update. This can happen if the computer was offline when you remove the apps originally. This issue was fixed in Windows 10 version 1803, so yet another reason to just go to 1803. So if you are upgrading a previous version of Windows 10, you can create a registry key to help those unwanted apps from coming back. I'm not going to go in depth here, but these slides will be posted and you can search this out if you want to learn how to create these registry keys to prevent these apps from coming back. Deployment and management options. So we have SCCM, which is our absolute favorite. Most of us have been using this for a long time. You can use task sequences to manage your updates and upgrades, and you can also use the servicing model to manage those updates and upgrades. Servicing works great. It treats it just like a Windows update. I just caution you if you use this model to be careful on supersedence. For instance, we had a couple iterations of, if I believe it was 1703 that were released, and one immediately superseded the other. So therefore, if you had these deployed, it would automatically deploy the latest version. So some people got 2 upgrades of 1703 in a short time period. The other thing with servicing, we went from 1709 to 1803 recently, and if you had things being superseded immediately, well then 1803 was the latest and greatest and would replace 1709. So I just caution you to use servicing rings carefully and maybe not supersede things right away, unless you want to go that route. Other options, you can use MDT, Ghost, Fog, numerous other deployment options. We can use provisioning packages, which is by far my favorite latest and greatest method for deployment. Provisioning packages using Windows Configuration Designer or Setup School PCs allows you to customize how you want your Windows 10 to be kind of right after the out-of-box experience. Instead of customizing an image and deploying that image, you can take what's already there, shipped to you from the manufacturer with Windows 10 on it, and we can apply policies and settings right out of the box, and you can even provision applications. This is going to be a whole nother session that I already did a YouTube video on, but I will walk you through the configuration designer if I have time. So Intune and Intune for Education, these are cloud-based ways of managing your device after the fact. Whether you used SCCM or Ghost or a provisioning package to provision the device initially, Intune and Intune for Education provide policies and settings and means to push applications down from the cloud. So you don't have to worry about the device being on site to manage it anymore. You can manage it anywhere there's internet access. Autopilot. Now, this is more of a hands-free way of deploying a device. All the newer devices have this hardware hash built into them. And what this does is allows the manufacturer to take this hardware hash and upload it and associate it with your cloud tenant. So if you're using Intune or Intune for Education, Dell or Lenovo or HP or whoever the major manufacturer is can associate all your new devices that you're going to be getting this summer with your tenant. So when they arrive on site, all you do is open them up and connect them to the internet, and it will automatically have your company branding if you've done that. And then as a user signs in, it will pull down any policies and settings associated with that device. So you could, in a sense, provision these devices wirelessly, on site, or off site. This would be ideal for a one-to-one program where students may not be able to come on site initially or ever. You could have the device shipped right to them. They open it up, connect it to the internet, sign in with their school credentials, and this will then provision the device for them wherever they're at. And then there's always other creative options. I've seen some pretty cool stuff out there using different methods of whether it's USB drives or Ghost for Unix or whatever. And I give you all kudos for working with what you have. But I want to let you know now that we have some awesome free solutions. And the provisioning packages with the Windows Configuration Designer is free and easy and gives you a quick way to provision your Windows devices, whether it's getting them into a local workgroup or local AD or Azure AD. All right, imaging Windows 10 with SCCM. If you've never done this before, I'm kind of assuming you have SCCM already set up in your environment, but I'm going to show you how to get the base Windows 10 into your environment. And this is yet another reason why not to customize your base image, because as these new iterations come out, it's so easy to get the new version into 10 and just update your existing task sequence. Alright, so on operating system images, you can right click down here and add operating system image, or click the button up in the upper left. I'm going to add in an image. This is a UNC path to where your source files reside. And for this version, we're going to need just the install.wim file. And this will take you all the way to the .wim. And make sure this folder, that's all that exists in there, because SCCM will package up everything that's in that folder and it'll just take up excessive space if there's more in there. So it automatically knows this is Windows 10 Education. I like to put in a note of what version. So after you bring in that operating system version or edition, you see how this is gray down here? You have to then right click and distribute the content and get it on your distribution point or distribution points if you have multiple in your environment. And this will take you through to a quick summary and then close. So I've already brought this one in here. I'm going to go ahead and delete the other one. You see it's yellow. That'll turn green when it actually distributes. If it's red, check for disk space or permissions issues. All right, so this is bringing in the base image. Now, under task sequences, I'm going to walk through creating a new task sequence. So click Create Task Sequence. We're going to do Install an Existing Image Package. And I'll call this like Windows 10 1803. You need to select a boot image. Hopefully most of you are using 64-bit in this day and age. For the image package, I'm going to browse out and grab the operating system image I just pulled in. Notice all these different iterations are in here now. When I talked about using a provisioning package for kind of just changing the bits, It's because they're all here. So you can choose at this point whether you want to go education or enterprise. I always partition in format. This is up to you whether or not you're using BitLocker in your environment. If you need to specify a product key, if they're MAK, put it in here. If you're KMS, do not. I recommend enabling the local admin account, especially during testing, to make sure there's an account on there should things not go well with joining the domain, or maybe you're not joining a domain. You can join a work group or join a domain. For today, I'm going to just do a work group. In your environment, you're probably going to choose join a domain. You can browse out, grab that domain, select the OU to dump the computer into, and then pick the account used to join the domain. Now, I always recommend changing the domain OU and putting it to something like an imaging OU or newly imaged. Don't just dump it into computers because then policies don't apply and things do not work correctly. So by default, it's going to install the Config Manager client package for you, and you shouldn't need to specify properties unless you have a more complex environment. Capture user settings and files. You shouldn't need user state migration, and if you do, you probably already have that set up and know it. If you think you need user state migration, uncheck this for right now, and we'll come back to that in a whole nother session. I always do not install software updates. One, you have to have software updates working in your SCCM environment to have this to work, and it adds additional time to the process. I recommend more so just keeping your main image updated, and I'll show you how to do that later. If you have any applications packaged up, you can add them in now. I don't have any currently in my new test environment. You can install up to 99 applications at a time. It's going to give you a quick summary and close. Now I can go back and right click on this and edit it and show you what a task sequence looks like. It's going to restart in WinPE. It'll format the disk based on logic, whether it should be BIOS or UEFI. You can change these partition sizes. I do recommend you try to leave these alone if you're thinking about doing BitLocker, and definitely UEFI wants those partitions. We're going to apply the operating system. Apply the Windows settings. I recommend changing this in your environment to something more appropriate like your school name. You can set your time zone. I happen to be in Eastern, at least today. And you're going to apply network settings. So even at this point, you can come in and change these, and you can do different steps. So you can literally copy and paste these steps and put logic on each step to say, like, if the computer name is like this, then put it in this OU. If it's like this, put it in this OU. And the same with applying device drivers. You can put logic on the step to do a query that would say, if the computer model is like Dell 3050, apply this step. So that's how you can have multiple device drivers step in one task sequence. We're going to set up the SCCM client, and then if you had applications, you could put them down here. And just a quick look at, there's a lot of different options in here as far as running commands, PowerShell scripts, restarts, software, formatting disks, user state migration, lots of different options with imaging. Drivers, by default it has auto apply drivers. You can apply driver packages, and most of the big name vendors out there have utilities that you can build into SCCM to help apply those drivers for you. And back to more user state migration. Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of that for right now. So then you would just simply deploy this and make it available to like all unknown computers and potentially even known computers in your environment if you want to re-image existing labs and workstations. All right, so that is how to create a task sequence and how to deploy it. Um, One last note on deployment, if you're doing a required deployment, it will go out to those computers, so be careful. I recommend when you're first doing this to always make it available just to Media and Pixie, so you can use either a USB drive to boot it or boot from Pixie and choose the task sequence to image. If you do a required deployment, it will image whatever is in that collection. All right, so what if we want to do an upgrade? Now we get a regular operating system image in here, but we want to do an upgrade package. So I'm going to add an operating system upgrade package. And this will be similar to before, but I've put this into a different folder. For space reasons, I always like to separate out what's actually needed in that folder. You can pick what architecture and what language. And we're going to go with English United States today. And note this is just to the source path. This is not the WIM file. This upgrade is all your files from your Windows 10 ISO. This is just an 1803 upgrade. I'm going to specify Windows 10 1803. And with that, it brought it in. And like before, we have to distribute that content, picking your distribution point or distribution points. Okay, so now I have an upgrade package. Let's create an upgrade task sequence. So this task sequence can be used for upgrading from Windows 7 to 10 or 10 to 10. I had a customer a while back that was using LTSB, and we use a task sequence to upgrade them from LTSB to current branch. I'm going to upgrade an operating system from an upgrade package. We'll call this Windows 10 upgrade. I'm just going to throw in an 1803 on here. I'm going to browse out and grab that upgrade package we just brought in. And again, see, it's got all the different bits available in here. And this is again where you can specify a product key if you don't have KMS. I'm not going to install any updates at this time. And you could do applications in here. This is another nice feature of using the task sequence for upgrades, is you could be upgrading Office or drivers or other things. I'm going to verify that summary and close. So now let's take a look at this upgrade task sequence and compare it to the other one. So we're going to prepare for the upgrade. Any of these steps you can change too. We're going to check for upgrade readiness. Does it meet the minimum requirements for memory and processor speed and even free disk space? You can do a battery check to make sure that this is on wired power doing the upgrade. Make sure it's got a connection. Remove incompatible applications, incompatible drivers, and suspend any third-party programs. Sometimes there's been some antiviruses that cause problems. We're then going to do the actual upgrade of the operating system and restart. Apply any setup-based drivers needed. Re-enable third-party applications. Set Windows default apps and associations. And apply any customizations. And we can add steps under all these. So you can add PowerShell scripts to pull out apps or add apps and those kind of things. So now after this upgrade task sequence is done, when we deploy this, the only option for deploying an upgrade task sequence is to make it available. I'm going to pick a known collection even though I don't have any in there. This option to pre-download content for this task sequence is super nice. If you're planning like a big upgrade across your environment, but you don't want it to pull down all those bits at once, you can have it pre-download this content ahead of time, and then it's there and ready for whenever they are ready to do the upgrade or you force the upgrade deadline. I'm going to make it available right now. I don't want to do a required upgrade to everybody in my environment. If you were doing labs, that'd be fine to do a required one. And notice it's only for config manager clients. This has to be an existing machine in your environment to do an upgrade because you can't pixie boot to it. It's an upgrade. It already exists. You can schedule one to become available. By default, it'll just make it available as soon as possible. If you're doing a required deployment, always check the box to expire it after a certain time so you don't forget about it. I always like to show task sequence progress. And if there's any maintenance windows in your environment in SCCM, what do you want it to do outside of those maintenance windows? Internet-based clients. So if you're using like the config manager, the gateway, or co-management, or some other means that they're on the internet, you have PKI set up, you can allow whether or not to allow that task sequence to run outside of your network. If you have Ops Manager or you want to generate alerts, you can. I just say only do this if you're actually going to pay attention to it. And usually your only option is to download content locally when needed or download all before starting. I highly prefer having all content available just so that way if something gets interrupted in the download process, it just won't go. And whether or not to use remote distribution points. You can save that as a template if you want. All right, so now I've just deployed and made that upgrade available. So if someone were to go to Software Center, that upgrade task sequence would be available in there for them to do themselves. Using SCCM, you can use the Windows 10 servicing feature for doing the feature upgrades also. There's a couple things you have to have in place to make sure those Windows 10 updates are available. When you look at all Windows 10 updates, you should have actual updates in here. If you don't, then something isn't configured correctly. So there's a couple ways you can go about this. You can find the feature update that you actually want and manually create a package from that, or you can create a servicing plan that is very similar to an automatic deployment rule like what we use for regular updates. So just to show you what this looks like, I already created a servicing plan in my environment. So on the deployment settings, we have it set to automatically deploy all software updates. My target collection, which don't pay attention to that, it's just an empty collection right now. Deployment ring, I have semi-annual channel targeted, so this is current branch for business and basically day one get the feature upgrades. And then on language, I would narrow it down to English, and title, I have it narrowed down to Business Editions version 1803. If you look in here, if you add something, it's going to target based on that, and if you want to put a minus sign in front of it, it will eliminate that. So if you wanted to do minus 1511 or minus 1607 or minus consumer editions, you could do it that way also. And then I always like to hit the preview button and see what that returns to make sure it's the correct feature upgrade that you need. You set the evaluation schedule of when the sync is going to happen, and then the deployment schedule. This is probably the most important part, is when this feature upgrade is going to be available and when it will install. I have mine set to be available as soon as possible, so if somebody were in Software Center, they could actually go in and do this feature upgrade themselves. And I set a deadline of 7 days out. So after the 7th day, at the end of this deadline, that feature upgrade would install. Now, user experience, I always set to display it in Software Center and only show notifications for restarts. Otherwise, they're going to get unnecessary pop-ups, which means calls to the help desk. On the deadline behavior, I always set what you want to happen outside of maintenance windows. I'm going to say go ahead and do the update, but I don't want to do the restart. And I'm going to check suppress restart on servers. Even though there shouldn't be servers in your collection, it never hurts to have that as a backup. And then this checkbox, if any update in this deployment requires a system restart, run update deployment eval cycle after restart. This shouldn't be necessary, but I figure while you're doing updates and upgrades, you might as well run that cycle. So this rule will automatically run for you and update your machines in your environment. Now you can create multiple servicing plans. Maybe you don't want to do everything at day one. Maybe you want to have the first quote ring be day one, and that's your little insider collection. And then maybe a month out, you do the next bigger pool of workstations that is kind of a good representation of your whole environment. And then finally, have the rest of your environment upgrade. These servicing plans do work very great. Again, I caution you about using supersedence to make sure that things aren't automatically updating. But in this rule, I was very specific about the version I want in there. If you were to just say all Windows 10 feature upgrades, then that could be anything and everything, and the supersedence would not have an effect on that. Or I should say it could potentially have a negative effect on that. And to get a good view of what's in your environment, if you go on Windows 10 servicing, again, this is my test environment I just set up the other day, so I don't have anything in here yet, but it would actually show you how many computers in your environment were running Windows 10 and the different versions, if you had 1511, 1607, 1803, and then you have a nice chart down here that shows you, this has nothing to do with your actual environment, this is just to show you when the different versions will be going out of support to help kind of keep you in check with what you need to keep updated in your environment. Provisioning, not imaging. Provisioning is a modern way of provisioning your Windows 10 devices instead of imaging. You already have Windows 10 on the device coming from your manufacturer, so why re-image it? And again, this is for a scenario where the device is brand new at the out-of-box experience, whether you just got it from the manufacturer or you've reinstalled Windows. And I can also show you a quick and easy way to create an unattend file to install Windows from a USB drive. All right, so the Windows Configuration Designer is a free app in the App Store, and this allows you to create a provisioning package very easily. As you can see, there's quite a few options on here. Today I'm going to cover provision desktop devices, and we'll take a quick look at advanced provisioning. So provisioning the desktop devices, we're going to create a project and save it somewhere where you can remember where it is. Now this is opening up a nice little wizard. For this naming convention, I'm going to do something simple like my name dash, and then I want to append the serial number of the device afterwards. You can enter a product key in here if you're using MAK, or if you're using KMS, don't worry about it. You can configure the devices for shared use. If you configure this, it will put some policies and settings in effect to help do automatic cleanup of profiles and lots of cool things for shared PCs. This remove pre-installed software, this will remove a bunch of the bloatware you get when you get it from the manufacturer, but if you do choose this option and turn it on, it will add additional time, about 20 minutes to the provisioning process, because this literally resets Windows. But if you know your devices are coming with that on there and you want a hands-free way of removing all that without having to manually do it, it's there for you. All right, on the next button, we can connect the devices to a Wi-Fi network. My network happens to be an easy one called Candy, and I'm going to put in the password. Whether you have a WPA2 or a open network, you can specify, and this is for provisioning initially, and it will also set this as a profile. Now, whatever your management tool is you're using after the fact can usually provision and add different wireless profiles. On account management, we can enroll into Active Directory. You'd specify the domain name and account used in order to add this to your Active Directory. You can specify adding a local admin account. You can enroll it in Azure AD. If you do this, you're going to click Get Bulk Token. What this will do is allow you to sign in with your Office 365 global admin credentials that will get that bulk enrollment token so you can enroll multiple devices with this one package. I'm going to today choose just local admin for ease. I'm going to call it tech and put in a password. You can then add in applications. This is so slick. For most of you that have been using SCCM and having to find all these command lines to install, it will pull it in for you. So, because most of you probably want to see something like the Chrome browser. Now, if you look at the command line, it automatically pulled in the quiet no restart for you. We will call this Chrome. I can type. Continue after failure. So this is kind of like SCCM, where if an application continues, do you want to continue doing other ones? And if you need to force a restart, you can also add in dependencies for the applications in here if it, say, needs Adobe Air or something for your document camera. So you can continue adding multiple applications along the way here. You can add in certificates for the device. Let's say you have a certificate that allows for Wi-Fi authentication, you can add that in, and then you can finish it. You can protect this with a password if you're worried about the contents of this getting out, and you can create this package, and this is going to create a couple small files, and then all you do is copy these to the root of a thumb drive. So you just need this runtime provisioning package and the security catalog. You put that in the root of a thumb drive. You pop that thumb drive into a computer at the out-of-box experience, and it will provision the device for you. And I did a whole another video on this, so I'm not going to cover that today. But that process to provision a device literally takes maybe a couple minutes. And after you put that USB drive in, it'll tell you after about anywhere from 20 to 60 seconds, depending on how big the package is, that you can pull that USB drive out and go to the next one. And the reason it takes anywhere from 20 to 60 seconds is all based on how many of these applications you added in, because it's taking a copy of all these files and this provisioning package and putting it locally on the device and then running it. I'm going to show you switching to the advanced editor because there may be reasons why you need to do more in provisioning. So I'm going to switch to advanced editor, and it did prompt you that that's a one-way ticket. Now under runtime settings, you have a lot of different things you can add in here. This is where we added the local account. You can do things like clean the PC. You can add in connectivity profiles. This is where we add in our Wi-Fi networks. You can do addition upgrades. You can configure the shared PC settings. And then under provisioning commands, this is where our additional software is in here. So if you need to come in and change the command line. If you need to add in scripts, you can add in multiple scripts in here, and you can do anything with PowerShell. So after you configure this, you would then export it. You would end up with those same files to put in a USB drive. Now you can have multiple of these provisioning packages on one thumb drive. And if you pop that thumb drive into a computer at the out-of-box experience and it finds multiple provisioning packages, it will just prompt you to pick which one you want at that time. So to summarize, we covered the different versions of Windows 10, kind of why you should probably go with 1803 or at least 1709, deployment methods, the couple of ways to use SCCM to image a machine with Windows 10, do an upgrade task sequence, use the servicing model, and we also covered using the Windows Configuration Designer tool to create a provisioning package for provisioning. I just want to thank you all for your time, and I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to doing more videos to help you out. Thank you so much.